over and getting that second chance, because you do not have many against Jada Humphrey.
A clock ticking down. Play clock just 2 seconds away from getting to 0, causes Quincy Davis to have to use the first timeout of his half for the St. Louis Slam.
And I think part of that, one, with the play clock, two, recognizing, if you're Q, just how important this drive is for the Slam. Because this is a momentum swing, massively one way versus the other. Because either you punch it in here or you give a Minnesota Vixen offense, whom you have stopped somewhat, another chance to go up by multiple scores. Massive drive for St. Louis. Good timeout by Q.
And our first final score of the day is the Pittsburgh Passion defeat the Mile High Blaze 44-6. So Pittsburgh moving on to another conference championship game here in 2 weeks.
And not a surprise by anybody, right? I mean, Mile High with a win over Nevada, just as they did last year, going across country, going to take on the Pittsburgh Passion. It was a tough ask for them to be able to do so. Give them credit for scoring a touchdown. Really nice touchdown scored by Mile High in that scoring drive that they had, but it would have been a lot for them to beat the Passion. And so Pittsburgh, they'll host either DC or Tampa, looking right now like DC.
Yeah, as DC currently still leads Tampa Bay Inferno 26-7. That game is winding down as well. Our game, though, still here in the first half with 12:54 remaining in the second quarter. St. Louis, 2nd and 11 from the 12-yard line. Gall gonna throw it to her right. She's got a receiver open, and stepping into the end zone for the slam is Ariana Cook.
Ice in her veins, Jamie Gall. Great little slant right into the inside. Well executed play by St. Louis. Slam was able to attack the Minnesota defense in a short yardage situation. That's a good defensive stand attempt by Minnesota, but a better offensive play by the Slam.
Carrie McMahon on to attempt the extra point, and Jamie Gall holding the ball for her. This kick is up, and it's gonna split the uprights. So 12:48 remaining here in the first half. St. Louis pulls within a possession, trails Minnesota 14-7.
And your St. Louis Slam scoring drive summary: 9 total plays, 60 yards, 4:40 off the clock, resulting in the touchdown for Ariana Cook. As the St. Louis Slam bullet is within a score 14-7. And for the receiving wise, Ariana Cook, that's her second receiving touchdown on the season. Again, they're spreading the ball out, knowing that they did not have Carrie McMahon as much as they did in the beginning part of the season. And it's a good adjustment now. You got to be available. You got to be ready when your number is called. Cook was ready, and a good catch for the touchdown.
So for the second time this game, with the first time being the opening kickoff, Carrie McMahon gets set to kick it off to the Minnesota special teams. As Tiff Wright is on the top of the screen, waiting to run this one back. Dvorak on the near side. This one's going to be fielded by Wright at about the 2-yard line. And she's going to cut to her right, and she's got some room to move. She's got a nobody in front of her, but she steps out of bounds. Steps out of bounds at the 37, 38-yard line. And kind of a mental error there by Wright, because the only person she had left in front of her was the kicker, McMahon.
Well, and is it a question of a miscue, or is it a question of spite your nose to save your face? And that's a question here where you don't want to take an extra lick. And between Wright and Peterson, both have played together with Nebraska. So when Peterson gets an outside edge on the kick return, she just does so well, and it's good officiating as well, recognizing that Peterson had touched the white line on the far side. Well done by this crew.
So 1st and 10 for Minnesota. Kelly gonna hand it off. Lunging forward and tripping is Fairholden. Looks like she got tripped up a little bit in the backfield, but she was able to leap forward for about a yard. So 2nd down and 9.
And St. Louis keeping the hands low as the ball carriers running through the gaps, trying to get any sort of an ability to try to trip up the ball carrier. And St. Louis is ready. Again, it's a really tough defensive line for the Slam to try to run against, because not only do they really seal gaps well, they do a good job of maintaining that if they get past you, that you're not going so far.
2nd down and 9. This time, Kelly is going to throw to her left. Radford, the intended target. Ball falls incomplete. Good coverage that time by Brooklyn Devitt for the Slam.
And Devitt's used to reading Erin Kelly well. It's a tough play-action play where Erin is rolling against where she has to throw, so she has to reorient her body to be able to get the ball out in time. It's a tough play on that offside bootleg, but St. Louis had it defended, and now another 3rd down and 9 where we've seen trick plays by Minnesota in the first handful of possessions.
And both Halverson and Wright run onto the field to join that huddle. So would not be surprised, Alex, if we see 4 for 4 on the trick play 3rd downs. So 3rd and 9 for Minnesota. Radford far to the left. This one's going to go straight up the middle. Not far to go. Only going to pick up about a yard on the play. Minnesota looking at its first 4th down of the game. So Alex, St. Louis's defense is able to do something they haven't done yet today, and that's stop Minnesota on 3rd down. And depending upon how this punt goes for Minnesota, they could be looking at some decent field position.
And a really solid returner too, Carrie McMahon, who seems to be doing it all for the Slam.
Going nice punt, but it's going to go out of bounds at the 30-yard line. So St. Louis with their, it's kind of laughable, their worst starting field position of the day so far, but it's really not going to matter because you have Gall, you have McMahon, and you have Humphreys on your offense. So anything's possible for St. Louis right now.
Well, as they have it, 1st and 10 from their own 30-yard line, 10:55 to go in this quarter. Still, the whole playbook is open for St. Louis, and this is where that last drive for the Slam is so important, because momentum swings back and forth over the course of a football game, and either you have it or you're trying to get it, and St. Louis seems to have it right now. Good punt, though, by Megan Dixon. She was a college goalkeeper where she played soccer, and so when you have that leg that a keeper in soccer requires, you punt the ball pretty darn well.
So Gall, she's going to throw it to her right. McMahon's going to come up and pull it down. She's going to pick up about 5 yards for the play's whistled dead with forward progress. Plenty of Minnesota players on her, including Candace Bostic.
Good simple out route by Carrie McMahon. Had the Minnesota defense fooled. See, she just takes that hard cut right at the 35 with just enough of deception in the offensive receiver routes that were run by the Slam. It's a good job of creating separation. Well done by St. Louis. Good play design.
So they gave her 6 yards on the reception, going to make it 2nd down and 4. Gall takes the snap. This time it's to the left. This one's going to be short. Intended receiver is Daza. But she's not going to be able to pull that one in, so right away, 3rd down for St. Louis.
The Slam team, Brian, that as of this point currently sits 1 for 2 on 3rd down. A 3 and out on their first drive, and then the touchdown drive. Momentum swings on this 3rd down and 4. Gall
walks up into position. Humphrey stands just behind her to her left. This one's going to be thrown. Looks like she intended to get this one to Humphrey. Humphrey might have taken too many steps to her left before going up the field, but it's 4th down for St. Louis.
And it's a good throw by Jamie Gall. It's the right throw by Jamie Gall, going for the teardrop, trusting Jada Humphrey to cut to the outside and get behind the Minnesota defender. But Humphrey, so uncharacteristic for her, didn't get the jump on the ball that she was looking for, that she normally has, and now it turns into a Carrie McMahon punt.
This one started with a Minnesota bounce, but ended up with a St. Louis bounce. So Minnesota, with 9:49 remaining here in the first half, is going to be looking at a 1st and 10 from their own 39-yard line. And Alex, Minnesota for the first time wasn't able to convert it on 3rd down, but they did what they needed to do, and that was hold St. Louis to a 3-and-out.
And realistically speaking, Brian, look at the games that Minnesota has played against St. Louis this season. The only points they allowed to the Slam down in St. Louis were on a pick 6. Then up here, you held them to 10. And so you feel like if you're Minnesota's defense that you know how to corral this St. Louis offense. Yeah, the last drive was a long drive where they really started to feed Carrie McMahon and get her going. People would say that they didn't have McMahon in the first game, and that's why. But at the same time, you play who's on the table, and it works well. Now that you have a game plan for her, they've corralled her, but they have to keep doing so. That's the important part for the Vixen.
So 1st and 10. Going to be handed off to Tiff Wright in the backfield. Wright's going to cut to her left and then back to her right. Nutzling tries to get her to pull down, and somehow Wright slips out of Nutzling's hands, able to pick up a couple more yards before finally being taken down by Raven Williams.
And it's a well-run play by Tiff Wright. But not only that, there's a blocker who comes over to the near side that gives her that extra secondary block. And you can see here on this pull, it's well executed. Just pulling over, creating that extra space, that extra time. And it turns into a big play because of great offensive line play.
And over on the western side of the hemisphere, Salt Lake and Cali game has started. Early in the game, 0-0. DC increased their lead to 33. So Wright gets the ball handed off for her, and she's going to get tripped up a little bit in the backfield, lunge forward, and pick up 2 yards.
And it looked like on this, Brian, she just lost her footing. Tough play, tough break, but that'll happen over the course of the game. It's making sure that you don't allow that to spiral into one misstep, into 2, into 3, and so on.
Tiff Wright, an employee of the General Motors Company. In case you didn't know that, Alex.
Well, now I do.
We run into each other on the professional side of away from football.
One of the things I used to do when I was doing all my pregame research is I go and look at players' LinkedIns. I looked at coaches' LinkedIns too. I've stopped doing that. That's a little much, I would say.
I've actually ran into her at the office, so to speak. So Kelly airing it out to her right-hand side, and this one, Nutzling, the closest person from St. Louis, and Dvorak, the intended receiver for Minnesota. Ball falls incomplete, brings up 3rd down.
She throws such a nice deep ball. When that ball really catches flight and she throws it perfectly, it's so majestic to look at. Even if it falls incomplete there, we are seeing 2 of the best quarterbacks in all of tackle football here on the field today.
And you and I talked on Road to Canton that of all the quarterbacks that Minnesota has had, Aaron Kelly has been the most consistent year in and year out for them.
Between yardage and touchdowns, yes, absolutely. The most consistent. And she gets better year after year. Are the interceptions a concern? Certainly. But when you're doing as many touchdowns and as many yards as you can, you'll take the interceptions.
So 3rd down, Kelly fakes it, she hands it off, and this time it's going to be Radford running on her left-hand side. No, it's not Radford. Oh, what a stiff arm. Huge block there by St. Louis's Brooklyn Devitt, but not before Minnesota picks up a great first down. That's Fairmullen, the ball carrier.
And another trick play for Minnesota. Aaron Kelly, this time the offensive line holds up well, and EK just puts it right in Vermeulen's face. Look at the space she has. And it takes first Kaylee Neitzel coming over, giving it a great effort, but then Brooklyn Devitt, to her credit, just stands in the way. Stands her in the way, stands on business, knocks her over for a good tackle.
So Minnesota with their 3 for 4 on third down trick plays today. Picks up a first down, 1st and 10 from St. Louis's 13-yard line. This time, Wright goes straight up the middle. Gonna pick up about 2 yards on the play before Kennedy Daniels tackles her. Clock continuing to tick here with 6:30 remaining in the first half. Winner of this game to face the winner of the Cali-Salt Lake game. Where that game is to be played, of course, will depend on the outcome of both American Conference games this evening. Here we go, 2nd and 10 for Minnesota. Right behind Kelly. Radford in motion. Kelly's gonna throw it to her left. She's got a receiver up, down, touchdown Minnesota, Britt Peterson.
That's why you get a Britt Peterson. Right there. The hands, the focus, the commitment. That's why you go get a receiver like that.
And after stepping out of bounds earlier, she knew right where the side of that end zone was. And Duraskova's kick is good, and Minnesota back in front by 2 possessions now, leading St. Louis 21-7 with 5:52.
And the scoring drive summary, 6 plays, 61 yards, 3:51 off the clock. Capitalized on by this Britt Peterson receiving touchdown. It's just that little option where she stops and then goes back to the football. There is the bobble there, but she does a great job to focus on it. Kiana Smith, great coverage for St. Louis. A good thrown ball in the perfect spot where only Peterson had a shot at it. And Minnesota taking that 2-score lead back, 21-7.
And if you look back to week 1 of the season, it was at the end of the game where Peterson was coming off the sideline there, and there was a hit almost as hard by the St. Louis team. And that is carried over now to this game as well.
There's some good rivalry in between these two teams. We've seen it as long as we've been. We've seen it here in Minnesota. We've also seen it when we've traveled down to do games down in St. Louis. The toughest part about a rivalry is you have to have both teams winning. And the team split this year. They also split in 2022. One of these teams is going to take the season series. It's a long way to go in this rivalry.
So Chancellor Hurd kind of bobbles the kickoff, but she's able to pick that one up and get up to about the 30-yard line. They're going to mark her officially at the 29. So great job there when things could have turned worse for St. Louis, being able to recover and give themselves some decent starting position, 1st and 10.
Well, as things proceed in this second half here for St. Louis, I imagine we'll see Jamie Gall looking more and more for Carrie McMahon.
Great job that time. Nowhere to go for Humphreys, and that's something we normally don't see, is Humphrey being stopped in the backfield by Minnesota.
And Paige Conde sniffs this out so well. You can see how frustrated Jada Humphrey is, because this is a play that she can take and turn into touchdowns, but nobody touches Paige Conde all the way to the ball carrier. It's a hip drop tackle that pulls her down. She's standing up, she's fired up just the same.
And Ariana Cook for St. Louis, some great blocking at the line there too against Candace Bostic. So 2nd down and 10. Gall. This one looks like it might have been tipped, but McMahon's going to pull it in. She's going to pick up some yardage. Going to end up with 6 yards on the play. Going to give third down inmanageable for St. Louis. Kaufman in on the tackle for Minnesota.
Well, and so we'll see what Minnesota has do up defensively. St. Louis, their playbook is open, just 4 yards. I imagine Jada Humphrey wants to see the ball more in her hands as the clock continues to wind.
Third down and 4. And Minnesota's going to elect to use a timeout here.
Good defensive timeout taken by Minnesota. Again, both of these coaching staffs have recognized how significant plays are and plays in specific spots are. And so they take the time to make sure that the plays are done right. That the offensive structure is there, the defensive structure is there. And this is a chess match now. You trust your players to execute the plays as they happen, but now it's also the mental game between these two coaching staffs of being able to try to game plan against one another. Again, there's no secrets here between these two teams. They played each other 3 times a season for what feels like forever. So you know what's coming. But now, how do you continue to reinvent the wheel while still keeping an opposing defense guessing?
And 33-7 looks like the final for the DC Divas Tampa Bay game. So we'll have the third matchup of the season in the National Conference, as well as DC and Pittsburgh look to punch their ticket to Canton, Ohio at the end of July.
And Amanda Congialdi continues to throw the football well. And that's, again, Pittsburgh has home field advantage in the Steel City. But it's another fun matchup between those two powerhouse teams. It'll be fun to watch in a couple of weeks.
So back to the game at hand. 4:14 remaining in the first half. Third down and 4 for St. Louis Slam. And Jamie Gall waits the snap. She's got time to throw. It's going to throw up the middle. McMahon's going to pull it in. She's going to pick up the first down. Find some room on her left-hand side. Going to get a block. Escapes one tackle. She's still fighting, but she did step out of bounds, but picks up a great first down for St. Louis. Keeps possession going in their favor.
And it's patience by Jamie Gall that extends this play. Where Minnesota, they're showing that blitz. You can see how they show blitz and then back off once the ball is snapped, dropping back into his zone coverage. And McMahon, she finds a way to get open. She cuts in front of the defenders and just turns it upfield. Able to get around an All-American in Jocelyn Tanner and make a big play out of it. Well done.
So first and 10 for St. Louis. Clock ticking on the first half. Women's Football Alliance Pro Division playoff action in the American Conference. Winner goes to the American Conference Championship game. Gall drops back, throws it to her right, way up high in the air. McMahon reaches out, and this one's going to fall incomplete. Good coverage by the Minnesota secondary.
It's still another chance where Carrie McMahon is able to have a chance to catch a ball for a big play. Big receivers make big plays, and she continues to be in the vicinity to do that time and time and time again.
Second down and 10. Fans getting loud here at Kloss Field. Hands off to Humphrey. Humphrey straight up the middle. Gonna pick up maybe 3 yards on the play. Gonna bring up third down and long for St. Louis, Alex.
And this is where composure for the Slam has to be key. Where it's easy to win, and it's easy to be positive when you win. But when you're behind, and you're not used to being behind, you need to show composure and not let your head be the reason why you lose.
Third down and a long 7. Gall Out of the pocket, being flushed, looking to throw the ball, going to lob it up in the air. McMahon's going to pull it down, but she's not going to have enough for the first down. Going to be about a yard short. Going to bring up 4th down and 1 for St. Louis.
And you can see Jamie Gall signaling McMahon to go over into the space that was on the near sideline. But yet further on, Stephanie Brown is open. Brown has separation. She gets past the last defender, and Gall chooses to go for her safety valve here in McMahon. A safe bet, sure, but maybe not the splash play that could have been there for the slam.
And that's going to take us down to our 2-minute timeout. So with 2 minutes remaining in the first half, Minnesota up over St. Louis 21-7. We'll be right back. Timeout here in the first half. Minnesota up over St. Louis 21-7. Minnesota putting up the points on offense today.
And with 21 points on the board, considering you scored 24 against the same team in the season opener, it's a good spot for Minnesota to be, but it's not enough. 4th and 2 defensive stop needed here. You're in field goal range maybe for Neitzling, but I think you have to keep the offense on the field.
So this one's going to be handed off to Humphrey. She's got nowhere to go, and she's going to lose yardage. Minnesota takes over on downs.
And the one and only Red Bryant on the stop. Humphrey up the middle is usually a 4 or 5 yard gain, but Red gets the ball carrier, holds on, and a massive defensive stop for Minnesota.
Can't say enough nice things about Bryant. A legend in women's tackle football, already inducted into the Women's Football Hall of Fame. Going to eventually be inducted in Canton, Ohio as well, and we'll talk about that later.
And she better be. I mean, if there's anyone who deserves a bronze bust to celebrate the game of professional women's football or professional football at any level, it's Red Bryant.
So Minnesota, 1st and 10. Kelly gonna throw it up the middle. She's got a receiver in and out of the hands of Lundberg. Great pass. Lundberg just not able to pull that one and brings up 2nd down.
And I don't like the decision by Minnesota here. This is a clock management drive where you have now given St. Louis a timeout. You need to run the football, keep the clock moving, force St. Louis to take timeout. Going back to Red Bryant, though, at the age that she has, it's not just a story. She's effective on the defensive line, and that's the coolest thing to see.
And after being retired for a short time, Red is still able to make a name for herself, coming back to play the game that she's loved since 1999, if you can believe that or not. So this time, quick little handoff to Tiff Wright, right up the middle. She's going to pick up about 3 yards on the play. Going to make it 3rd down and 7 for Minnesota.
And I'm a little surprised not to see a timeout from St. Louis here. Preserve some clock, get a chance to at least try a long field goal. I'm a little surprised by what the Slam are doing now. Because in a realistic sense, Brian, with 2 timeouts, you could have a lot more time on the clock. Right now, if they run this all the way down, you might be looking at 30 seconds, if that.
Minnesota, plenty of trickery up their sleeves today on third down, but this time just going to be quick little pass to Halverson, and Halverson's not going to get far. She's going to pick up a yard on the play. So it is going to bring up fourth down, but Minnesota, St. Louis does elect to use their timeout here. Otherwise, Minnesota could have ran this all the way down to 20 seconds.
And that's why I'm surprised, because you're going to have a punt here, and you're going to have presumably some sort of return. And that timeout that you're having, maybe you're sitting there saying, well, okay, let's save it for our offensive drive. But if you're St. Louis, you can attack the sidelines, and the Slam have found success going on the out routes, going on the slant outs. Over the course of this game, I'm surprised. It doesn't make much sense to me.
You know, you talk about legends earlier with Red Bryant. There's another one, Coach Michelle Brown there on the field. One of the greatest long snappers. First Vixen player I ever met, not including Laura, the owner, Brown, who was playing when I actually met her.
Well, and Michelle is one of one. Head coach of Augsburg women's flag football over across town here in Minneapolis. So how about that? Division III flag football has started to grow. So now it's important for Megan Dixon to be able to put this ball in a spot where Carrie McMahon may have to do a lot of running to make something happen here. This is an important punt for Minnesota.
Dixon takes the snap. Nice punt indeed. This one's going to be fielded at the 30-yard line, and McMahon's going to be nowhere to go as Minnesota refuses to let go of that jersey. Great coverage.
Gorgeous. A gorgeous punt by Megan Dixon. Not only is it right at the receiver, but it gives your gunners enough time to get down and get in coverage. Where McMahon keeps the legs turning. And what did I say a couple of plays ago? Where I said that they didn't take a timeout. You have 30 seconds left. You got 32. And so just that little game management thing is really hurting St. Louis here. Maybe, again, there's still a lot of time left, but you have the timeout. Why not take it?
First and 10 for St. Louis from their 34-yard line. Pair of receivers, DeGaule's right, lone receiver, McMahon to her left. She's going to hand it off to Humphrey. Humphrey straight through the middle. She's going to pick up about 3 yards on the play before she's taken down by Flugel for Minnesota.
And what's more curious, too, knowing the importance, and are they taking a timeout here, or what are they doing? It doesn't look like they're taking a timeout here. You had a chance for a double dip. You're going to go into the half with timeouts in your pocket? What?
And Minnesota elects to use the timeout with 2 seconds remaining. Alex, thoughts on why?
I don't know. Unless you're seeing some sort of a mismatch that you don't like, and I mean really not liking. With St. Louis not taking a timeout, I mean, it's the last play of the half, barring a defensive penalty. And so, again, my question is just like I asked St. Louis, why? Minnesota, why? I'm confused right now, Brian. I really am.
Well, I don't have that answer for you, but I can tell you that over in Salt Lake City right now, Cali trails Salt Lake 3-0 as Salt Lake took their second drive of the game. Cali stopped them on their opening drive, but their second drive went down and they were able to kick a field goal. So that game, 7:20 remaining in the first quarter. Salt Lake over Cali 3-0. Here with 2 seconds remaining in St. Paul, Minnesota, the Minnesota Vixen are up over the St. Louis Slam 21-7 on what should be the final play here of the first half.
And important for Minnesota to recognize, yeah, you're up by 2 scores, but there's still another half of football to play. This game is far from over.
So Gall takes the knee. So Alex, we end the first half of this game 21-7, Minnesota up over St. Louis. We'll have the exciting conclusion after this.
group right here, all around, is football. We're all football players. Y'all are football players, okay?
Down. Pascal's going to go straight ahead. Receiver caught touchdown. They're back by him. What a catch. Houdini acts for Zion. She works another tackle. There's got one for
You know the moments. The feeling in your feet. The rhythm of ambition. That extra. That aha. That sight.
That's something.
The click. The shift. The boom. And you're there. The mess becomes a map. And you call it art. Or science. Or code. Because now, you know the way forward. For all the moments that drive you, there's edX. Fuel your ambition with thousands of job-relevant courses and programs at edX.org.
And as we can see, the future of technology is with us. You might be thinking, Doc, this is truly amazing. And we got
Hey, is the projector ready? Come on, time for a team meeting.
Welcome to the Road to Canton Halftime Show. I'm your host, Brian Sweeney, the voice of the Women's Football Alliance Pro Division National Championship game. With me, as always, is Alex Westhead, and the playoffs are here. And we're going to spend this episode looking at the 8 teams remaining and how they got to this point. We will count down the Pro Division seeding from number 8 to number 1, beginning with the Mile High Blaze. The Blaze finished the regular season at 3-3. Alex, the Blaze are averaging only 12.5 points this season.
And that's the strength of the Mile High Blaze. And we said it throughout the course of this regular season and over the last couple of seasons, their strength is defense. It's a team in Mile High that snuck into the playoffs again, beating Nevada. And now the road for them gets tougher just because their defense has to match up against some really darn good offenses in the National Conference side.
Well, and you've got a quarterback that's only thrown 2 touchdown passes all season.
And it's a challenge for them, too, because they also have to look at and say, if you know what's coming, it's a lot more difficult for them to be able to get creative on offense. They have some challenge. It's good for them to make the way into the postseason, but they just need more throwing the football to contend with the Pittsburgh.
And they have Reese Peterson rushing the ball, who's been very consistent over the last 4 seasons.
And consistency is good. They need something to give them some consistency.
The Tampa Bay Inferno come in at the number 7 seed when their only victory of the season was against a Division II team back on May 9th. Alex, although their record does not reflect it, Tampa is second in the Pro Division with rushing, averaging over 250 yards per game this season.
Well, and it's the two sides of you here. On one hand, you have one win in the regular season, but the other side of that is that you have to look at who they've played. To have had the tough schedule they've had and to have that much rushing depth, it's impressive what they've done.
Well, and their last winning season was back in 2022, and that year they shut out the Divas 21-0.
And it's not necessarily a gimme matchup for DC, where Tampa gives teams fits. They're tough to contend with. They're tough to game plan around, especially on the defensive side of the football. This will be a fun matchup for them.
The number 6 seed belongs to the Cali War. The War consistently win 83% of their games each season behind one of the league's most dangerous players in Brianna Spidey Barrett. Alex, before COVID, the War was the team in the American Conference.
But the biggest thing you look at Cali now is how you continue to retool. And I think we've really seen where the Cali War are in this season, retooling and revamping their offense.
Well, and you have a quarterback in Guzman who this season has tripled the number of touchdowns that she's thrown, but she hasn't thrown an additional interception.
Well, and you could see her getting better, too, over the last couple of years, really rotating in with Chantel Wiggins and trying to figure out who is that one quarterback going to be. It's nice to see Guzman finally taking that reign.
And you have Spidey Barrett, who leads the team now for 3 straight years, both on the ground and in receiving yards.
And impossible to plan for. It's not just being able to stop Spidey Barrett, it's how can you contain her.
Coming in at number 5 is the St. Louis Slam. The St. Louis Slam, since joining the Pro Division in 2023, have made it to the national championship every season. Alex, St. Louis went 1,009 days undefeated before losing on the opening week of the 2026 season. Since that time, they have outscored their opponents 156-75 and are eyeing a 4th straight trip to the national title game.
Well, and part of that comes from getting your main weapon offensively and Carrie McMahon back. That's huge for them. But then also being able to have Jamie Gall find and consistently throw to that target again. When you have Division II opponents, yes, you can run the score up on them, but now they're finally getting their offense rolling. The defense already was, now the offense is sticking in too.
Well, and let's not forget, Carrie McMahon, besides being a great receiver, she leads the Pro Division in punt yardage, averaging 42 yards per kick.
And for a team that doesn't punt much either, that's really impressive to see.
And Jamie Gall still getting it done, even though she has some of her lowest numbers in the last 3 seasons.
And continues to be really one of the focal points of that offense for them.
The Minnesota Vixen come in the number 4 spot. They ended the regular season with the 2nd highest points per game average behind the number 2 ranked quarterback in the Pro Division in Aaron Kelly. Aaron Kelly, in her 5th season, is the most consistent quarterback that Minnesota has had. The Vixen have finished in the top 3 in the Massey ratings for 4 of the last 5 seasons and are looking to get back to a national championship.
And it would be a very tough road for them to get there, but I think they're at the point now where the core of that team is so battle-tested that they like themselves in any matchup that they might have in this postseason run.
Jackie Radford, another great receiver in the Minnesota offense, 342 yards this season, 6 touchdowns, but she's also averaging 12.3 yards per carry when they hand the ball to her.
And it's so good to see them use not just the trips and the quads that they have from side to side from time to time, but they also know how to use those motions and those deception plays that for a team that doesn't see them frequently might be tough for them to handle.
The number 3 spot belongs to the DC Divas. Amanda Congialdi is averaging more than 100 yards per game than the 2nd-rated quarterback, with over 600 more yards this season in the air. Alex, last season the Divas lost in the national championship, their first appearance since 2016.
And remember, they had a lead in that game. They had a lead in that game before the 2-minute weather delay that really ruined the funk that they were in and that St. Louis was in on their own right. It feels though this time around, DC is in a better spot. They don't need Congialdi magic in the dying moments of games to win football games. They've had some great matchups against Pittsburgh, but you don't feel that same kind of ick about them that you had at times last year, especially late in games. This is going to be a good spot for them, especially in the opening round, to see what they can do.
And you have Navia Hall, the top receiver, 544 yards on 35 receptions and 9 touchdowns.
And that's big. Those are big numbers for a 6-game schedule. And you look at that and you say, okay, that's a legitimate star wide receiver that if Congialdi needs to throw the football to somebody too, she can just go bang, bang, bang anywhere across the field. That's a really good spot for them to have.
But are they hurting themselves averaging 9 penalties per game?
Well, always, right? And that's what we talked about last year on ESPN2. The penalties are a challenge for the DC Divas. If they can stay consistent and they can keep the yellow flag in the pocket of the officials as much as they can, they will be just fine.
The overall number 2 seed is also the number 1 seed in the National Conference, the Pittsburgh Passion. Since joining the WFA in 2016, the Passion have never won a championship, although numbers this year say it could be their year. Alex, the Passion have 2 of the top 3 rushers in the WFA this season, and their total combined yards are just under 2,500.
And it's a Pittsburgh Passion team that we've looked at in seasons past and have said this is a team that is injured over and over and over. And this year, that's not the case. They seem to be healthy at all the skill positions and where it matters in the offensive and defensive lines. I think the biggest thing for them is just continuing to switch up their offense as they go deep into this postseason run against teams that they've already seen.
Well, and that's their offense. Defensively, they have Cameron Ruffner, who leads the league in forced fumbles.
And there's been some really good defensive line players that have come through that Pittsburgh Passion program in the Steel City. And when you have the threat that is there
for Pittsburgh, it's dangerous for opposing offensive lines and for quarterbacks, knowing that your window to get the ball out is so much smaller because of how good that defensive front four can be.
The number 1 seed in the American Conference is also the number 1 overall seed, and that's the Salt Lake City Wildcats. Alex, the Wildcats have not lost since joining the Women's Football Alliance at the start of the 2025 season.
And it's going to require a significant effort for that to change.
They have the number 1 offense in the Pro Division, averaging over 48 points per game.
And part of that comes from their schedule, but the other part, when you look at how they played against the Cali War, they were putting up similar numbers, not as many points, but similar offensive numbers. So this is still a tough out for anybody that might have to play them.
And you have players that are on both sides of the ball. Defensively, they're only averaging 8 points per game allowed.
And that's the advantage of youth.
Laura Gates at quarterback. Here is a phenomenal young woman that can throw the ball at will wherever she wants. But defensively, she's already pulled in 6 interceptions this season, leading the league. 2 of those she returned for touchdowns.
And how about that, too? A quarterback leading the league in interceptions caught.
Alex, we finished the regular season tied with our picks at 37-5. It's a clean slate because the playoffs, it's 0-0. Who do you have winning this weekend? Tampa Bay at DC.
Tampa keeps it close, but DC, I think, cruises at home, maybe by a touchdown or 2.
St. Louis at Minnesota.
St. Louis, no notes.
Mile High at Pittsburgh.
It's, again, good Ford Mile High to qualify for the postseason, but their road ends here. Pittsburgh in a rout.
And Cali at Salt Lake.
It's tough to beat a team 3 times in any given season, but there's just too much youth and there's too much stamina in the corner for Salt Lake. Wildcats here.
Don't forget, tickets to the National Championship game in Canton, Ohio, July 24th through 26th are still on sale. Get yours and say hi to Alex and I when you see us walking around on the concourse. Enjoy the rest of tonight's game, and we'll see you next time for the Conference Championships on the road to Canton.
Rolls to her left, has time, throws on the run to the end zone. It's caught for a touchdown! Pittsburgh TD!
The athletes, they're the backbone of this whole league, and they're just amazing people. They've got amazing stories.
They're in a pattern, they're looking for her, able to bring that one in, Brianna Barrett. My goodness.
I never thought I'd be here. I feel like the best things in life are things that come to you unexpected. So it's been a great journey for me.
I know this is where I'm supposed to be.
Caught touchdown, Jada Meister.
Essentially is true of breaking barriers, right?
She could go all the way, and she does. Touchdown.
We're shattering the glass ceiling.
Great pass up in the air. Touchdown.
All of the women role models that we look up to are all women who did things that were not expected.
They realize they're pioneers. They realize that the trail that they leave is going to be a path that a young girl can follow.
It gives you hope. They believe in themselves, I believe in them, and Franco believed in all of us, so it just goes with the territory.
One team!
Yo, Jay, what you say?
Recovery is everything. That's why these DNA Vibe jazz bands are being gifted to everyone in the WFA. That's right. Thanks to the NFIM and the Shine program, every athlete in the Women's Football Alliance will be gifted the ultimate game changer for their recovery.
This patented technology targets recovery at the cellular level so that we can maintain our peak performance. And if it can handle our hits, imagine what it can do for you.
Welcome back to the Women's Football Alliance Pro Division American Conference Playoffs with Alex Wested. I'm Brian Sweeney. And at the end of the first half, Minnesota up 21-7 over St. Louis. And Alex, road to Canton, people just got done watching it, and you had St. Louis picked to win this game. You want to go back on that at all?
You know, I did. And remember, in road to Canton, normally I'll give a reason why. I had no notes. I just had a feeling. There's a lot of ball game left, and it feels like St. Louis there's still stuff there where the Slam can still make this a game. They've had it as close to a one-touchdown game, and they start with the ball on offense here. But the biggest thing for St. Louis is, again, the mental fortitude, where once again, the only time that they've really been tested is in Canton, Ohio, in terms of being in front or being down. We saw the resolve that they had against the DC Divas in last year's national championship game. It's going to require more resolve here, not at a neutral site, and not with a 2-hour weather delay, where the Slam needs something big on this offensive drive. Otherwise, I might be wrong.
Well, and St. Louis had a chance to double dip had they used a little bit better clock management to end that first half. But this time, the second half, and another bobbled catch by Chandler Hurd, but she's going to pick it up again. Good little stiff arm for her. She's going to get up, being pushed backwards there. They're going to give her forward progress at about the 33-yard line. So St. Louis starting in the general vicinity where they've started every possession so far this game.
Well, and even it's a good play and a good change by Chancellor Hurd to have, again, the fortitude to recognize, well, I didn't get the ball, let's go back and let's make something happen here. It turns into a really nice, impressive gain, picking up 23 yards on the return. And that's where that mental fortitude kicks in, where you say, oh, I had one setback, but now let's turn it into something positive, just like she did there.
So St. Louis 1st and 10 to begin the second half of this game. Humphrey to the right of Gall. Gall gonna throw it to her right. This one's gonna be caught by McMahon. She's gonna get about 6 yards on the play. Gonna be tackled by Minnesota, but St. Louis doing what they need to do to start the second half of this matchup.
And you really get a sense, Brian, that again, Carrie McMahon is going to get hers. Jada Humphrey has been contained. And so if St. Louis can get Jada Humphrey working just a little bit, but give credit to this coaching staff for the Minnesota Vixen, they've had Jada Humphrey very well contained over the course of this game, where she hasn't been having opportunities at the big play that we're used to seeing her at.
So 2nd down and 5 for St. Louis. Play clock, at 5. Gall's for the ball. Gonna throw it to her left. This one almost intercepted. Great coverage that time by Minnesota's Ashley Whalen, and she almost had an interception for Minnesota.
Now we've seen some underthrown teardrop kind of balls from Jamie Gall over the course of this game. This isn't that. This is a well-thrown ball by the quarterback for St. Louis, and just off the hands of Whalen. Tough break for her, lucky break for the St. Louis offense, as they went 1 for 4 on 3rd down in the first half.
And they're facing a 3rd down now, 3rd down and 5. From their 38. Gall. High snap, able to pull it down. She's gonna throw it, she's got a receiver open. This time it is caught by Stephanie Brown. Brown gonna make her way down the field. She's fighting for it. She gets pulled down, but not before a huge first down for the St. Louis Slam.
And that's very close to another opportunity that they had for a big play, where the first time Gall chose the safety valve and McMahon underneath, but still had wide open Stephanie Brown. This time Brown gets behind the defensive back in Megan Dixon, turns it upfield, and makes a really big play on it, setting up the Slam, goal to go.
So 1st and goal for St. Louis. Ball spotted at the 7-yard line. Trip receivers to Gall's right. McMahon, her target to her left. She's going to drop back. She's going to throw it towards McMahon. Back corner of the end zone. She's up. Incomplete.
And Minnesota's defense is ready for this play. There's a double team on Carrie McMahon on that side. One in zone, one in man coverage. And McMahon, that's a great catch. And I thought she had the 1 foot down in bounds for a touchdown, but the official rules, no touchdown. And it's second down and goal.
And for those not familiar, we play NCAA rules, unlike the NFL where 2 feet would be required. It's only 1 foot required in the Women's Football Alliance to come down with it. So I kind of agree with you there, Alex, but maybe the ball was being bobbled. This time, quick little throw to Humphrey. Humphrey's going to be stepped out of bounds. She's going to pick up a yard on the play. Going to get up to the 5, maybe the 6 yard line. Going to bring up 3rd and goal for St. Louis.
And with how ineffective Jada Humphrey has been up the middle today, it's a good play call by St. Louis to spread her out to the outside, just do that quick little hit in the flat, and let her use that legs and athleticism that she has to try to turn the ball upfield.
Year in, year out, Alex, we see Humphrey be one of the best running backs in the Women's Football Alliance. So Minnesota doing a great job today not allowing her to catch her stride. Gall up the middle. This ball is tipped at the line. It's going to fall incomplete. So 4th down for St. Louis, Alex. And if you're Coach Q, what do?
You're going for it. It's not a question. You're going for this. Jamie Gall has time. Pocket holds up well, but as the ball is fired, it's just enough of a hand on the ball by Edie Halverson to block it down, make it a good opportunity for Minnesota to create a turnover there. But now for me, if you're St. Louis, it looks like they're setting up field goal. With McMahon in the backfield, Gall counting it out, so maybe you see a trick play here, but I'm surprised they're not going 6 instead of settling for 3.
And we've seen enough trick plays from the team wearing the Pride jerseys tonight. I wouldn't be surprised if we see one here from St. Louis, but no, McMahon just puts the ball up, splits the upright, and the field goal is good. So St. Louis closes in on Minnesota. 21 for Minnesota, 10 for St. Louis. And
the St. Louis Slam scoring drive summary, 7 plays, 67 yards, and a total, Brian Sweeney, of 2 minutes and 56 seconds off the clock. A 22-yard field goal for Carrie McMahon, the second the Slam have hit on the season, and the second here at Kloss Field in St. Paul.
So St. Louis manages to get 3. I do agree with Q, though. Take the points. You have held Minnesota for 2 of their possessions. You need to keep that up, though, here if you want to close this one out.
And maybe it's a different conversation if Jada Humphrey can get something up the middle, but right now she just hasn't gotten anything. Taylor Hay was as much as a north-south runner as we've seen. Maybe would have converted that, but still just
great boot by McMahon. Caught by Peterson. Peterson going to go to her left. Going to run into some St. Louis players, but she's going to get herself up to about the 24-yard line. Good coverage tackle made that time by Stephanie Brown for St. Louis.
So the biggest keys for Minnesota now, still a 2-score game. Time of possession, ball control, keeping the clock moving. You can win this game as long as you have the football and you execute. That's another big thing. Minnesota needing to execute here in this second half. Not every drive needs to result in points, but it needs to result in time, it needs to result in plays, and it needs to result in yardage.
Well, yardage is something that Minnesota is looking to pick up here. with 2,160 yards on the season. This time, Kelly's going to hand it off. Tiff Wright escapes the tackle, gets away from one ankle, and Kaylee Nutzling is able to pull her down, but it's a first down for the Vixen.
That'll do. We talked about the change in Paige Kuplik not being available due to injury today. But Tiff Wright able to create some separation. Nice little move to get past the first defender. And then takes just enough of the reach of the linebacking core. Jasmine Yandel finishing off. Down it by Mary Altepeter. That results in another Minnesota Vixen first down.
Fresh set of downs for Minnesota, 1st and 10. Vermeulen in motion. Gonna be met in the backfield. Tiff Wright is leveled almost instantly that time by St. Louis's Kennedy Daniels.
Daniels reads this well. This is a great read by a linebacker exploding through the gap, causing a big tackle for loss. And as consistent as St. Louis's defensive core has been, especially the front seven. Great jump, great penetration here. You can see Daniels, first contact, nothing more.
Loss of about 3 on the play. Going to bring up 2nd down and a long 12, short 13 for Minnesota. Kelly right under center. This time, she's going to hand it off. Up on the right-hand side of the field. Excellent run by Radford for Minnesota. Is going to pick up the yardage lost and get close to the sticks. Have to see where the official marking is, but it looks like it's going to be 3rd and short here for the Vixen.
Minnesota 4 for 5 on 3rd downs in the opening half. And with a big yardage play, big yardage pickup for Jackie Radford. Again, you're not expecting to see a receiver having such an important role in the running game. But Radford, top 30 in rushing yards in the WFA, does exactly that.
So 3rd and 1. This time, Vermeulen, the ball carrier, she's going to pick up the first downs. First down, Minnesota.
And that's where that clock starts to come into play here, too. You can run the ball up the middle. You only need a couple. Hand the ball off to a wonderful running back in Vermeulen who can just hit the hole, put the shoulders low, and drive over the yard to gain. Minnesota Vixen first down at the 49.
As the sun starts to set here in St. Paul, Minnesota, still 76 degrees.
Well, winter's coming. You better have your shovel out tomorrow, brother.
Going to be spending the day at Pride tomorrow, working the Minnesota Vixen booth. So everybody not happy with me on Road to Canton or tonight's broadcast, feel free to come out and say hello. Or come on out and say hello and sign up to play women's professional football next season. So Radford gets the ball handed off to her. She's going to pick up 6 yards on the play before ridden out of bounds by Nutzling. Great run by Jackie Radford for Minnesota.
And you can really use those sidelines as much as you can so long as the clock allows you to. Where you can roll out to that space, take advantage of not having to take a significant hit, and just work the ball in your favor.
Well, 2nd down and 4. Clock ticking. Minnesota probably going to play much of this quarter on the ground. Use that clock in their favor.
It's worth noting at this point the match ratings mean nothing. You've been seated, you know where you are, you know where you have to go. You don't have to keep trying to score touchdowns. Now it's just about winning.
Another handoff. This time, Vermeulen up the middle. Good tackle by Julia Kemp for St. Louis.
And again, the clock stays moving. You're on the St. Louis side of the field, short yardage situation. You may see Joanna Vermeulen, 3 yards and a cloud of dust. Or turf pellets, I guess.
Clock ticking, 7:10 remaining here in the 3rd quarter. Minnesota up 21-10 over St. Louis. Women's Football Alliance Pro Division American Conference playoffs. Kelly Little trick play, hands it off to right before she got tackled. Great trick play by Minnesota. Another trick play on another third down, and it's another first down for the Vixen.
The third time the Statue of Liberty works. St. Louis is going to have nightmares about this play the 9 hours back down to the Gateway City. And you can start to see again the frustration boiling over. There's behind the play, Edie Halverson is entangled with Brooklyn Devitt, and you can really see how St. Louis's frustration, save for 1 3 and out, where the Slam have not been able to stop the Minnesota Vixen.
So fresh set of downs, 1st and 10 from St. Louis's 29-yard line. And Alex, I've been to the Statue of Liberty, but I've never seen it quite like this. Another trick play, 3 hands, Kelly over the middle, and this one was intended for Lundberg, and what a setup, but unable to finish.
Incredible. It's more trick plays that are set up so well. And when you have an offensive gameplay where you use these rollouts, you use these sweeps, and these reverses earlier on in the game, where you have to respect the run, it turns into the pass that's open, and a ball just a little long out of the reach of Solveig Lundberg. But my goodness, Minnesota's offensive game plan has been darn near perfect for the St. Louis Slam here in this game.
I've been working for the league since 2018, and I don't think I've ever seen offensive plays like we're seeing tonight. So 2nd down and 10. This is fun. This time, quick little pass. Dvorak pulls it in. Not going to get many yards on the play. We are going to have a flag. Mary Altpeter in on the tackle for St. Louis.
The offense, we're going to go 15. Half the
2 penalty markers
we're going to go
come
back
in, 1 from each side of the
15.
field.
Illegal blindside block, 69. Offense. Personal foul. Illegal blindside block. Offense. Number 69. 15-yard penalty. 3rd down. 2nd down.
So that'll back Minnesota up. And for a play that, again, would have kept the clock moving. It's those penalties that Minnesota's had today, now the 3rd that they've had, that have all been of the unforced variety. No holding, no pass interference, just things that you have control over. And the penalty yards for Minnesota continues to be a frustration in this game, if there are any others.
Averaging 40 penalty yards per game coming into this game, and just about to that number already this evening. So replay 2nd down. 2nd and 25 for the Vixen. Kelly gonna pass up the middle. Pass is gonna be caught. Great job by Dvorak pulling that one in. Gain of 14 on that. So it's 3rd down and 11.
And on 3rd and 11, clock winding, whole playbook is open. I think we'll see them keep the ball on the ground, keep the clock winding as much as it can.
Radford in motion, and Minnesota is going to have to call a timeout here. Play clock was getting down, but they got it off, but Coach Lewis might not have seen something that she liked there, Alex.
And I still think you want to trust your players, and you trust your players on the field to have the awareness of what needs to happen. Just let it happen. Again, a 5-yard penalty. Yep, the penalties have been a frustration. St. Louis, to their credit, has played a very clean game so far. 1 penalty called for 5 yards. That was a false start. But even there, just being a little more patient, I think. You didn't need to take the time out there. You could have, sure, but I don't think you needed to. But then again, that's why we're up here in the booth, and the coaches are in the field.
And over in the other American Conference game, Sam Gordon of the Salt Lake City Wildcats just found the end zone as well. Extra point still coming there. Salt Lake up 9-0 over Cali. 3:58 remaining in the first half of that game. Much closer than we would have thought that game was going to be.
Well, it's a third straight time that you've played against each other. And so when you think about that too, Cali has seen them enough now. Salt Lake has done what they can because they run the ball and they know how to punish teams. And so whether it's Minnesota, whether it's St. Louis, you look at that game, that whether it's Salt Lake, whether it's Cali, it's a tough matchup on both sides. Just because of the speed that Cali has and the youth, but experience that Salt Lake has had. Like we've talked about on Road to Canton all year, Salt Lake is dangerous because youth normally a double-edged sword, where you have youth, but you don't have experience. The Wildcats have that experience.
Extra point was good in that game. So Salt Lake 10, Cali 0, just under 4 minutes in the first half of that game. Back here in Minnesota, it's 3rd and 11 for the Vixen. This one up across the middle, in and out of the hands. Radford usually pulls those in, and this time she's not able to hold on to it.
And most importantly for St. Louis, the clock stops. Field goal range is not a question here. You're looking at about 47 yards from this spot for Krishova. So I don't think you're thinking about it like Aaron Kelly, whether we see the ball continue to be run through the offense or whether we see a little pooch punt. We will find out, but frustrating end of the drive for Minnesota.
They do have Tiff Wright lined up behind Kelly. It's going to be another trick play. Kelly throwing it. She's got a receiver open in Dvorak, and Dvorak pulls it in. What a play for Minnesota. First down.
Gutsy by Connor Joe Lewis. Not just to go for it on 4th and 11, but to execute on 4th and 11.
Nice. Those numbers, that zero's awfully tight. It was Tiff Wright, not Dvorak, that pulled that in, but the last time they tried that, it was Tiff Wright who was part of the razzle-dazzle. They kind of switched it up this time, and success in the end. Minnesota 1st and goal from the 10 as the clock ticks away.
And another flea flicker by Minnesota. My goodness.
Tiff Wright, ball handed off, reaches forward, gets to the 5-yard line. In on the tackle, Raven Williams for St. Louis. And Alex, this is fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's most basic, but it's also doing what Minnesota needs. 8-minute drive now for the Minnesota Vixen. Winding the clock, watching it go second by second. And with all of the plays Minnesota had, St. Louis can watch as much film as they want. But when you see things you haven't seen before, it's tough to plan against. And Minnesota had the game plan ready to roll.
And we saw Tiff right there on the sideline after that last carry. Get looked at. Bad snap. Kelly's able to pick it up, throws it across the left-hand side. Gonna be incomplete. Halverson, the intended target, not able to pull that one in. Gonna bring up 3rd and goal for Minnesota.
On recovery and patience by Aaron Kelly. Halverson's open, fires a shot, but as Halverson goes towards the end zone, just lost her footing, couldn't hold on to the football. Good credit as well. Robin Cooksey ready for the interception. Instead, 3rd down.
Third down and goal for the Vixen from the 7-yard line. This time it's a handoff. Gonna pick up a few, gonna get back to the 5-yard line.
And you're maybe sitting here thinking about setting up an opportunity for Dershkova on a preferred side to get the 3 points that you gave up to St. Louis on the first drive of this third quarter.
Durskova to kick.
Not a gimme either. Durskova 2 for 6 on the year.
Good kick. It's up. It's got the distance. It splits the uprights, so Minnesota picks up the 3 points given up to St. Louis on their last possession. 24-10 Minnesota. 2:21 remaining here, Alex, in the third quarter.
Well, the Minnesota Vixen scoring summary, 13 plays, Brian. 13 plays for 76 yards, and the time off the clock, 9 minutes and 23 seconds gone on that drive. Not only does it result in points, it takes up a bunch of time, and it takes up a bunch of yardage, and it works points on the board back to a 14-point lead. Minnesota's rolling.
And you look at the fact, wasn't a reverse, wasn't a double reverse, wasn't a flea flicker, but it was a double reverse flea flicker that picked up that first down. And thanks to Dan Winsota for pointing out that terminology, watching that closely and letting us know what he saw from home there. So this time, fielded cleanly by Chancellor Hurd. Hurd straight up the middle. Going to get some of the best coverage, best return yardage she's had so far this game. St. Louis going to be first and 10 from the 41.
And in a 2-score game, just over 17 minutes left in it. Again, at what point you keep working for Jada Humphrey on the outside? At what point do you put her out as a wide receiver? Just giving her time to use that speed that she has rather than carrying the ball, but trying to take advantage of space when she can use arguably her best asset, her speed, to flip the field for St. Louis.
So Cook and Richardson to Gall's left, but she's got McMahon in her sights, and McMahon's going to pull it in, causes a Minnesota defender to fall down. McMahon escapes another tackle, continuing to fight for yardage. It takes most of the Minnesota defense to pull her down, but what a play and what a pickup by Carrie McMahon.
Oh, and that's why she's so good. She creates separation, and even when she doesn't have separation, she turns it into a big play. Just got that extra step on the secondary, and a ball perfectly thrown by Jamie Gall right into the breadbasket, getting out of the reach of Candace Bostic, cutting back to the inside. And Paige Conde just holds on, can't hold on enough. That is a All-American heroic effort to flip the field by Carrie McMahon. Very well done, but an injury on the far side.
That is McMahon that they're looking at her left leg right now as team tends to her.
That's a tough spot, certainly for St. Louis to be in, recognizing that that's your leading wide receiver. Able to get up now with the assistance of the great St. Louis training staff. But if she is out, as we have seen all season long, if she is out, this St. Louis offense is not the same. They are not as explosive, and they are not as lethal against WFA pro teams. And the stats prove that. When you look at how they played against other pro teams this year, they weren't putting up the numbers that we were used to seeing them put up.
So Brixen comes on to replace McMahon. This time, St. Louis trying a little trickery of their own, and it's not going to get very far as she escapes a tackle, though. And what a hit by Minnesota. St. Louis trying to do something there with Ariana Cook, the receiver, running with the ball after their own trickery.
And Q makes adjustments better than just about any coach in the WFA. Going for the trick play this time. Minnesota sends the outside linebackers to get good penetration. Humphrey just gets the ball out in time, and Cook able to make something out of this play, where you see how many Vixen jerseys in the backfield, and Cook just continues to try to get back to that line of scrimmage. Looks like it's a loss of about 4.
The loss of 4. Gall airs it up right-hand side, up and down, and what a catch for St. Louis as they're going to pick up a first down. And that's McMahon, obviously feeling good, does what she does every game, leaps into the air and pulls the ball down.
And you could make a list of every wide receiver in any pro football league, any college football league, and if you watch Carrie McMahon enough, you put her darn near the top of those lists. Great vision, great route running, great hands every single time.
And great vertical. Every time we see McMahon go up for that ball, she is leaping to the waist level of that defender. And that is going to take us to the end of the third quarter, Alex. We have 1 quarter remaining here in St. Paul, Minnesota. Minnesota Vixen up over the St. Louis Slam, 24-10. We'll be back for the exciting conclusion just after this.
Hey, Blitz, how you feeling, guys? How's your feet feel? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our mascot Blitz on the track doing his special dance, the three-quarters.
Welcome back to the Women's Football Alliance Pro Division American Conference Playoffs with Alex Wested. I'm Brian Sweeney. And Alex, we have 15 minutes remaining in what has been an exciting game, especially if you like a little razzle-dazzle in your action.
It's the playoffs, and Minnesota really took the lead, took the charge on opening up the playbook and using the trick plays to success. St. Louis has started to follow suit. But now, for both of these teams, this is your contest. For Jamie Gall, you're looking at maybe 15 minutes, then the end of your career for the St. Louis Slam. Meanwhile, for Minnesota, you have to shut the door. You got to get the job done. It's a 2-score game, and still a very dangerous team in the Slam.
3rd down and 3. Gall drops back. She's going to throw it to her left. She's got McMahon in the end zone, and McMahon's going to draw the flag.
Interference. Defense number 13 says the foul occurred in the end zone. We'll put the ball at the 2-yard line.
Britt Peterson.
Automatic first down.
Guilty of the pass interference there. Going to be a fresh 1st and goal for St. Louis. And
the first real penalty that we've seen that's a mental error. You can make that stand if the ball is there, and you can make that stand if the ball is caught. Problem is you're in the end zone. Problem is the ball is not even close to being in the area. And so just a rare mental miscue for a great corner that may give Minnesota, it will give Minnesota a tough defensive spot, but it gives St. Louis now 4 additional plays to try to punch the ball into the end zone and make it a 1-score game.
So 1st and goal for St. Louis from the 3. Gall takes the snap, is going to throw it to her left, a wide open receiver, and this time it's going to be caught for the touchdown. Touchdown, Stephanie Brown, St. Louis.
And another well-thrown ball by Jamie Gall. They found success to the outside. They found success in those quick little out routes. And when they work well. And St. Louis able to convert on them, and it's a 1-score game.
So this time Nutzling is out for the kick. Gall holding. This one is no good, Alex. So Nutzling, who's usually very good at backing up McMahon for the kicks, not able to put it through the uprights. Minnesota keeps that 8-point lead.
And she was the primary kicker for a good number of years for St. Louis before McMahon entered the picture. Before that miss, Kaylee Nutzling 7 for 7 on the point after try. And that's her first miss, and a big one here in this season. But most importantly for St. Louis, 5 plays, 60 yards, 223. Slam need quick scores. They picked one up there. Now the Slam defense needs to show up, get a quick stop where they can no longer afford the types of drives that had the 9-minute length that the last Minnesota drive has. This has to be, if you're a fan of St. Louis, this has to be a quick defensive 3-and-out or better to give yourself a chance to tie the game up.
The 24-16 Minnesota over St. Louis. Hamlin University, Kloss Field here in St. Paul, Minnesota with Alex Westhead. I'm Brian Sweeney, and what do we got? 5 weeks from today, national championship game in Canton, Ohio. Going to be a wonderful afternoon there. So this time, great little run back. Tiff Wright is leveled at the 30-yard line.
Well, and the aggressiveness is going to start kicking up for St. Louis here, recognizing that a turnover needs to occur. And so you'll see how important for Minnesota this ball control comes into this game. Right with the one arm to start, as soon as you see that pressure, put 2 hands on the football, secure it. The ball is the game for the rest of the night for Minnesota. You cannot afford a turnover.
Wright is up, walking off on her own power. Over in the other American Conference game, it is halftime. Salt Lake, 2 SLs. Salt Lake up over Cali 10-0 in that game. And that game a lot closer than I thought it was going to be at halftime, Alex.
Well, and a couple of eyes on the game, you just see that once more Salt Lake has a kicking game. They also have the touchdown ability that they have. But Cali's done a really good job, not just having the game plan to be able to control Salt Lake, but also being able to create opportunities in their own right. Spidey Barrett is a player that's going to take over the game if she can. But right now, Salt Lake doing a good job of keeping her from doing so.
So Minnesota 1st and 10 from the 30-yard line. Kelly takes the snap, hands it off to Radford. Radford cuts to her left. She finds a hole, gets a good stiff arm, picks up about 7 yards on the play. Great job by Radford, picking up a 2nd down for Minnesota.
And you're staying ahead of schedule, you're staying ahead of the sticks, continuing to wind the clock, wind the time. St. Louis with all 3 timeouts left. You don't need to take one yet in a 1-score game. But you do need a stop at some point in this game to get the ball back.
The 2nd down and a long 3. Snap is up. It's another handoff, this time to Fairmullen. She's going to lose a couple yards on the play. Going to bring up 3rd and 6 for the Vixen.
So how aggressive does Connor Joe Lewis choose to be? Do you choose to use the trick plays that have worked so well in these spots? Or do you choose to be conservative? She's called a pretty darn near perfect game so far, offense and defense. But now every decision in these 4th quarter magnified.
When these 2 teams met in week 7, it was that 4th quarter game calling that had a lot of people upset. But this is a new game, and Minnesota is being forced to use their 2nd timeout already.
This time the play clock at 0. And so if you're taking that timeout, remember that it's not just that the play clock is at 0. It's not automatic. The official has to recognize that the play clock is 0, remove the flag from the pocket, and throw it. And that's not automatic by any means. Yes, the play clock was at 0, but there's still cadence that has to happen. Minnesota at this point, 1 timeout remaining. That's a nice photo of you, though.
Ask Brian. I've had one question this year.
Have you really?
I've had one question.
All right.
They wanted me to explain the playoff formatting to them.
Which is valid.
Is
fair.
Confusing, yet valid. So hopefully they understood that. And if you have a question, you can scan that QR code, and I will answer it for you as well. Doesn't necessarily have to be about the Minnesota Vixen or the St. Louis Slam either. It can be about anything in the Women's Football Alliance. Hopefully it's in the Pro Division, as that's where I do have the most access to come up with answers.
Well, we do know certainly one postseason matchup for the next round that's been determined, DC and Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh 2 weeks from tonight.
So 3rd down and 6 for Minnesota. This time, pass to the left. Nice job escaping a tackle. She's going to pick up a first down. Great job by Lundberg that time, picking up a first down for Minnesota, keeping the clock running and moving the chains.
And it's a better pull out of the offensive line. Look at the separation that is gotten there because of the block thrown right there, where Lundberg takes advantage of the Kinsey block that allows her to go upfield, picking up the first down and running the clock more.
St. Louis not able to afford to keep the clock running.
But you're also not in the spot where you want to take a timeout now, because it's still just a one-possession game. You have all 3, but you also still have the 2-minute timeout. You have a lot of time left where you don't need to take them here.
And good to see Wright back on the play. She's got the ball handed to her. She's going to escape a couple tackles, going to pick up about 4 yards on the play. So after being slow to get up after that kickoff, great to see Wright back on the field.
I can't remember if it was Laura Gates or somebody else that Susie Kuhl asked in Canton, Ohio last year about what makes you guys so resilient. And she said, because we're some ballers. And I think that for every player in every color of jersey all across the WFA, that just goes to show, once again, they're here to play the game. They're here to win. They'll put aside injury. They'll put aside personal feelings. They're going to win one way or another, as long as they're able.
So 2nd down and 6 for Minnesota. This time it's another trick play. And Radford keeps the ball. She's going to stretch out. Going to be about a yard short, but another trick play for Minnesota picks up more yardage. 10:55 going here in the 4th quarter.
And the more we see that, the more it almost looks like a triple option, where it's those reverses, it's those end arounds, but the option is there to go back, where you have multiple players that all get a contact on the ball. Good tackle by Altapeter, slowing her down to the first down marker. But it's so exciting, it's fun, it's explosive, and it's a Minnesota game plan that's been ready to go from the drop today.
3rd down and 1. Radford and Dvorak to Kelly's right. Hands off to Lundberg in the back, or Vermeulen in the backfield. It's all going to depend on the mark. There, 4th down. They're going to say she was a little bit short.
And if I'm Connor Joe Lewis, I might be asking for the sticks here just to see how far I have to go. Because from our vantage point here, it looks close. And I would be curious to see just how close it is to that first down yardage.
Just over 9.5 minutes remaining. St. Louis trails by 8. Minnesota, 4th and we'll say a foot. And they're gonna go straight up the middle with another great trick play as Vermeulen picks up a first down for Minnesota.
I've been doing Minnesota Vixen games since 2019. I don't think I've seen a better executed offensive game plan than what we've seen from the Vixen tonight. Because it's not just the fundamentals of it, it's the execution of it. Everything save for maybe an incompletion here or there. Everything has gone right on offense for Minnesota. No turnovers, big plays, explosive plays, scoring drives. Just, you can't, as critical as I was about the game management at the end of the St. Louis game here in the regular season, how can you be critical about what Connor Joe Lewis has done tonight? This is brilliant.
1st and 10 for Minnesota. From the St. Louis 29, Fairmullen gets the ball handed to her. She's got St. Louis players, instead of tackling her, actually pushing her forward. She's going to pick up a good 8 yards on this play. 2nd down. Kempf on the tackle for the slam as we hit the 8-minute mark, and Minnesota's doing what you said St. Louis can't afford them to do, and that's keep the clock running.
And it's almost another 7-minute drive. 8 plays already, 7 minutes gone. And if you're Quincy Davis, you're thinking about, I gotta use a timeout here. You're thinking about it. You trust your defense to get a stop, sure, but again, 7 minutes gone.
Second down and 4. Kelly, snap. Fairmullen, handoff. Left-hand side, pushes forward. Gonna be about a yard short, but once again, 3rd down and 1 for Minnesota. Kempf in on the tackle for St. Louis. And
this is where the advantage of having the play clock here at Kloss Field exists. Because you can wind that play clock to a second, 2 seconds, maybe zeros, recognizing the cadence that has to happen.
And a great little handoff. She cuts through the middle. She's got nobody in front of her. Radford, touchdown, Minnesota. Driscoll on for the point after. Kick is up. And the kick is good. There is a flag on the play. Looks like it might be holding on Minnesota.
Back it up 10. Hold. We're going to re-kick. Holding. Offense, number 59. 10-yard penalty, replay point for try. Holding 59 on the edge.
So Jessica Bartelt for holding on Minnesota is going to push the kick back. Duraskova going to have to try the extra point again.
It's a long field goal at this point, straight on. Looking at about a 29-yarder here.
This one's a little bit wide left, so 6:32 remaining in the 4th quarter. Minnesota up over St. Louis, 30-16, Alex. And what do we got?
Minnesota Vixen scoring drive summary, 9 plays, total of 70 yards, 8 minutes, 11 seconds off the clock. That's winning football. And we feel like a broken record talking about how diverse, creative, explosive the Minnesota offensive play calling has been here tonight. But it's another exclamation point. And what feels like just a handoff and go for it. And another trick play. More Minnesota magic tonight.
And what a game it's been. And you said it. Offensively, Minnesota is playing a near perfect game. Really, their only mistakes are a few mental errors that have caused a flag to be thrown.
And a couple of overthrows, which I wouldn't even call them overthrows. Except I did, so well, that's on me.
And this one was a live ball recovered by Minnesota. And the way they're playing, that could be the proverbial end of the St. Louis Slam season right there, depending upon how Minnesota's drive goes with this possession.
Look at the backspin on this. It hits in the perfect spot, and Chancellor Hurd just overruns it. And Minnesota, with the special teams that they have, the defensive coaching that they have, aware immediately. Solveig Lundberg just falls on the football. All you got to do, fall on the football, take possession back, wind the clock, on to the next game.
Of course, the winner of this game will go on to play the winner of the Salt Lake Wildcats and the Cali War in the American Conference Championship game 2 weeks from tonight. If Cali wins, Cali will travel to play the winner of this game. If Salt Lake wins, the winner of this game will travel to Salt Lake City, Utah for that game.
Not an easy feat either way.
So Minnesota first down and 10 from the 29-yard line of the St. Louis Slam. Kelly hands it off to Fairmullen. Mullen up the middle, spins around, gets a few more yards. Going to be taken down that time by Tay Johnson, but the clock keeps running.
And if you're St. Louis, I think you think about taking timeouts here. Recognizing that you need to stop. You can force a long field goal attempt. And maybe you get the ball back. When you have 2 shots, you need 2 more scores to keep this game alive. The clock is not your friend. And you go back. I was so frustrated by the coaching at the end of that second half and the game management at the end of the first half. Where now, that could have been the difference. We don't know, of course, but control what you can control, and you play to win the game.
Handoff up the middle. Fairmullen escapes a tackle. Gonna pick up a first down for Minnesota. Tackled that time by Brooklyn Devitt. But Minnesota moves the chains, Alex. It's 1st and 10 with 5:20 remaining here in the fourth quarter.
And the clock continues to wind. And that's most important part. The clock continues to wind. It is on Minnesota's side. And they can just keep running this down the throat of the St. Louis Slam as much as they'd like to. And for a front seven that contains teams very well, when you've had as much trick plays, you've had as much success, this might be it.
Another handoff to Fairmullen. She goes on her left-hand side. Gonna be dragged down again. Devitt with the tackle. Clock keeps running. She picks up 2 yards, stays in bounds. Clock ticks.
A good tackle by Brooklyn Devitt. Good lateral quickness going to the outside. Vermeulen tries to go off tackle. Devitt disengages early. Little assistance in the pushback from Yandel, just in the positioning of where she was at. Now 2nd down and 10.
Minnesota playing some of their best football that they've played in years right now tonight for the fans here at Kloss Field in St. Paul. Pass up the middle. Gonna be caught. Looks like they're gonna give it to her.
And pretty darn close to simultaneous possession.
Radford on the reception.
Kerrigan Gam reads the route well defensively for St. Louis. Jumping into the area, being able to keep with her.
Those of you at home, Alex and I are both staring out the window. the tension here as the snap is up. Little pitch to her backside. Gonna turn the corner. She's gonna go for the end zone. Pushed out of bounds is Tiff Wright. They are gonna give her a first down, so no set of downs for the Vixen. First and goal from the 3.
And they just continue to execute. Minnesota executing at a high level. Not just executing, but executing at a high level. Because not only are trick plays fun, but they also require practice. They require routine. They require knowing how to use them and use them in a game situation. The execution here has been excellent for Minnesota tonight. All aspects of the game for Minnesota has been nice.
This time handed off to Wright. Wright straight up the middle. Going to run into some blockers. Maybe pick up a yard. Daniels in on the tackle for the slam. Minnesota going to be content to let this one run down to the 2-minute timeout. So 2 minutes remaining here in the fourth quarter. Minnesota up over St. Louis 30-16. We will be right back to finish this one out. Women's Football Alliance Pro Division American Conference Playoffs. Football Alliance Pro Division American Conference Playoffs with Alex Westhead. I'm Brian Sweeney, and Alex, Minnesota Vixen are just 2 minutes away from doing something that they've never done in their history, and that's beat St. Louis in postseason play.
And twice in a season for that same metric. And you and I were talking off air here. Our first game in St. Louis together was a complete rout at the hands of the St. Louis Slam. And I had in my thought at the time, including the postseason game there, that was a lot closer, about teams going waves. Teams go up, teams go down. And how long you ride that wave is up to you. Right now, the wave is red and black.
So second and goal from Minnesota. Ball going to be thrown into the end zone. Intended for Britt Peterson. Good coverage that time for St. Louis by Amanda Richardson. Brings up third down and goal.
And preserves two things. One, the clock, and two, a timeout. It's a good read by Richardson, cutting in front of the ball. And now third down, so St. Louis will get the ball back, and they will need to move quickly because they will need 2 scores to tie the game up.
Third down and goal. This time, quick little pass in for the touchdown. Jackie Radford with another one. Minnesota. Coach is cooking on that fan sign there, Alex, and you cannot disagree with that sentiment.
And Connor Joe Lewis took all sorts of accountability after the first game here against St. Louis. And when you take accountability and you adjust, good things happen. The Vixen are 152 away.
So Minnesota increases their lead now 37-16 over the St. Louis Slam, Alex. And I've been covering Minnesota Vixen since April of 2015. I've been working for the Women's Football Alliance since July of 2018. You and I have been working together since April of 2019, and together with the league since July of 2021. There's been nothing like this that I have seen in women's tackle football. We talked off air. The way the Vixen offense is playing this game cannot be compared to any level of football, male or female. They are executing, and executing when needed.
And against a great defense, where I think St. Louis is still a little shocked based on what we've seen from the Slam in this season and how well they played against pro-level defenses. 37 points on the board against? Who thought that was going to happen?
When St. Louis is only allowing an average of 11.5 points per game, Minnesota tripling that this evening. This time, Chandler Hurd is able to catch the ball cleanly. Going to run across the field, going to try to pick up some yardage, but the biggest thing now is the longer she stays upright with that ball, the more time that ticks off the clock.
And so if you're St. Louis, you're down 3 scores. You need a touchdown, extra point, and an onside kick. A touchdown, an extra point, and an onside kick. Then a touchdown, an extra point, and an onside kick. You have to go with pace. You've got 3 timeouts, but you have to go with pace. Taking a look back to that point about St. Louis defensively, points allowed against pro division teams, against Minnesota 24, against Cincinnati 12, against Houston 6, against Minnesota again 7. And now the Vixen 37 points against. Incredible.
1st and 10 for St. Louis. Minute 42 to get it into the end zone 3 times. Gall turns, throws. Great catch by Humphrey. Humphrey spins away from a tackler. Gonna get a hole. She's gonna run up the middle. She's got a couple Minnesotans in front of her, but she's able to pick up a huge first down. Britt Peterson with the tackle, preventing Humphrey from scoring and thus keeping the clock ticking.
And there's what I said earlier on in the 3rd quarter. Get Jada Humphrey involved in the passing game. Not just in the backfield, but put her out as a wide receiver. Let her use that speed to effect.
So Minnesota using their 3rd and final timeout here with 1:20 remaining, Alex. And over on the West Coast, still 10-0 Salt Lake. If the game carries out the way it is right now, Minnesota traveling to Utah in 2 weeks.
And there's one way to beat the Salt Lake Wildcats if you can. It is with trick plays, it is with confusion, it is with tempo. What are we seeing tonight from the Minnesota Vixen? Trick plays, confusion, and tempo.
We talked a little bit ago how St. Louis had 1:40. They had to find the end zone 3 times. Great little cross route there to Humphrey. Almost found the end zone for that first time if Britt Peterson hadn't caught up to her.
And I said it when she had the touchdown reception for Britt Peterson earlier on in the game. But that tackle right there is why you go get Britt Peterson.
So 1st and 10 for St. Louis from the Minnesota 15. High snap, Gall pulls it down, throws it to her left. She's got McMahon. Not enough distance as that ball is underthrown. Britt Peterson on the coverage.
And it's really not a bad ball at all to McMahon. And if we don't see, we saw an earlier touchdown reception in this game by Stephanie Brown. We may see them use her again. Notice Jada Humphrey not in the backfield. They're using her again as that wideout. They're keeping back Chancellor Hurd. And it's a good ball that just forces McMahon to turn around. Peterson made the adjustment after the pass interference earlier of just stepping back, giving space, and letting the ball fall where it may. Now, 2nd and 10.
2nd down and 10 for St. Louis. Ball is up. Gall throws it to her left. Humphrey, the intended target, once again out of her reach. Condi on the coverage for Minnesota. 3rd down and 10.
And you can see Jamie Gall, and the attacking plan here in this red zone situation is to go to that left side. They keep going to Britt Peterson. But realistically, if you're St. Louis, try something over the middle. Try a little slant to the inside. Create some mismatch there just by attacking that middle here. Again, the clock would stop on a 1st down. And so just go over the middle. There's space there. You've run 2 plays now to the outside that haven't been successful. Make the adjustment.
3rd down and 10. Gall, snap, high again, throws it across the middle. Another inaccurate throw, this time Ariana Cook, the intended receiver. It's 4th down for St. Louis, 67 seconds remaining.
No, you're going for it. This is the season for the St. Louis Slam. Granted, it's still a 3-possession game, but this is the season. The orange and black of the St. Louis Slam.
Tim Rice, music maestro, will stand up and shout over the PA system. Gall, snap up, drops back. This time intercepted by Minnesota. That's going to be the game as Britt Peterson pulls it in.
Argument of safety could be made based on where the catch was and Peterson bringing it into the end zone. But ultimately delays the inevitable. Finally.
Minnesota lines up. St. Louis still all 3 timeouts. Kelly hands it off. Up the left-hand side of the field. Keeps the clock running. Mackenzie Reed, tight end. Ball carrier for Minnesota. Devitt on the stop. And Alex, after such a storied career, to know that Gall may be retiring. She's won national championships at multiple levels, Division II, Pro Division. Not necessarily the way you'd want to go out, with an interception being your last pass.
No.
But that is going to be the end, and for the first time in history, the Minnesota Vixen have defeated the St. Louis Slam in postseason play and are on to the American Conference Championship. Final score, 37-16. Alex, what a treat we have had this evening watching almost perfect football on the Minnesota side of the field.
And in the almost 30 years of Minnesota Vixen football, the opportunity existed for Minnesota to make a statement tonight, saying that they were not going to let this season end the way that it had previously, multiple times, to the St. Louis Slam. The game plan was devised, it was well executed, and another trip to the American Conference Championship. Wow. And for St. Louis, for the first time in a long time, many questions about the Slam heading into 2027.
Talking to Laura Gannon. She used to work with her at 93X Radio. Talking to Laura Brown earlier this season and even last season, Laura said the road back to a national championship was going to involve Minnesota being able to beat St. Louis, not only in the regular season, which they did this year, but also in the postseason. This team is firing better this week than we've seen them fire in years.
I would argue in history. I would argue in the history of the Minnesota Vixen, there has not been a more complete 60 minutes than that which we just witnessed. Everything on offense was rolling. The defensive stops were there. Carrie McMahon got hers, yes. But when you corral Jada Humphrey to the point where she's visibly frustrated by being unable to beat Jada Humphrey, that just goes to show how dominant Minnesota was in all three aspects of the game. But this cannot be their Super Bowl. This cannot be their big game. There's another big game coming up in 2 weeks, whether it's here against the Cali War or in Salt Lake against the Wildcats, as Sam Gordon just about scored another touchdown. She's shy of it, still 10-0. This can't be it. You have to go win another game in 2 weeks.
For our camera operators this season, Jeff, Jenny, and AJ. For our director, KC, and our replay operator, Anthony. With Alex Westhead, earlier this season, Dr. Berg, I'm Brian Sweeney. We thank you for tuning in to Minnesota Vixen Women's Football. We will see you next year, but first, tonight's game, St. Louis 16, Minnesota 37. We'll talk to you soon.
Yo, Jay, what you say?
This group right here, all around, is football. We're all football players. Y'all are football players, okay?
Down it. Contiola's going to go straight ahead. Receiver caught, touchdown. They're back again. What a catch. Houdini acts. Sideline, she works another tackle. They've got one
You know the moments, the feeling in your feet, the rhythm of ambition, that extra, that aha, that sight.
That's something.
The click, the shift, the boom, and you're there. The mess becomes a map, and you call it art, or science, or code, because now you know the way forward. For all the moments that drive you, there's edX. Fuel your ambition with thousands of job-relevant courses and programs at edX.org.
to her left, has time, throws on the run to the end zone. It's caught for a touchdown. Pittsburgh TD.
The athletes, they're the backbone of this whole league, and they're just amazing people. They've got amazing stories.
Barrett in the pattern, they're looking for her. Able to bring that one in, Brianna Barrett. My goodness.
I never thought I'd be here. I feel like the best things in life are things that come to you unexpected. So it's been a great journey for me.
I know this is where I'm supposed to be.
Caught touchdown, Jada Meister.
Essentially is true of breaking barriers, right?
She could go all the way, and she does. Touchdown.
We're shattering the glass ceiling.
Great pass up in the air. Touchdown.
All of the women role models that we look up to are all women who did things that were not expected.
They realize they're pioneers. They realize that the trail that they leave is going to be a path that a young girl can follow.
It gives you hope. They believe in themselves, I believe in them, and Frank will believe in all of us, so it just goes with the territory.
One team!
recovery is everything. That's why these DNA Vibe jazz bands are being gifted to everyone in the WFA. That's right. Thanks to the NFIM and the Shine program, every athlete in the Women's Football Alliance will be gifted the ultimate game changer for their recovery.
This patented technology targets recovery at the cellular level so that we can maintain our peak performance. And if it can handle our hits, imagine what it can do for you.
You know the moments, the feeling in your feet, the rhythm of ambition, that extra, that aha, that sight. That's something. The click, the shift, the boom, and you're there. The mess becomes a map, and you call it art, or science, or code, because now you know the way forward. For all the moments that drive you, there's edX. Fuel your ambition with thousands of job-relevant courses and programs at edX.org.
And as we can see, the future of technology is with us. You might be thinking, Doc, this is truly amazing. And we got.
Hey, is the projector ready? Come on, time for a team meeting.
You know the moments, the feeling in your feet, the rhythm of ambition, that extra, that aha, that sight.
That's something.
The click, the shift, the boom, and you're there. The mess becomes a map, and you call it art, or science, or code, because now you know the way forward. For all the moments that drive you, there's edX. Fuel your ambition with thousands of job-relevant courses and programs at edX.org.